I never thought this would be my life. I was the guy who had it all together, a stable job, a nice house, and a beautiful wife. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. My name is irrelevant. Let's just say I'm your average middle-aged guy living in a suburban town in the USA. This is my story, raw and unfiltered. It all started on a typical Tuesday evening. I came home from work, exhausted from the day's grind. My wife, whom I'll call Laura, was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. She greeted me with a smile, but something felt off. There was a distance in her eyes, a coldness I couldn't quite place. I shrugged it off, blaming it on my own fatigue. Little did I know, it was the beginning of the end. Weeks went by, and the strange behavior continued. Laura would spend hours on her phone, often smiling at messages she wouldn't share. She started going out more, always with the same excuse. Just catching up with old friends. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But doubt had already planted its seeds. One night, curiosity got the better of me. While she was in the shower, I picked up her phone. My heart pounded as I scrolled through her messages. There it was, a conversation with a guy named David. The messages were explicit, filled with details of their secret meetings and professions of love. My world shattered in that moment. I felt a rage I'd never experienced before, but I knew I had to confront her calmly. When Laura came out of the shower, I was sitting on the bed, her phone in my hand. She froze, her face draining of color. "What's this?" I demanded, showing her the messages. She stammered, trying to find the right words, but there were none. The betrayal was too deep, too raw. "I'm sorry," she finally said, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "How long?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. 6 months, she admitted. 6 months of lies, deceit, and betrayal. I felt sick to my stomach. We argued for hours that night. She begged for forgiveness, promised it was over, but trust is a fragile thing. Once broken, it's nearly impossible to mend. I told her I needed time to think and left the house, driving aimlessly through the night, trying to process what had just happened. The next few weeks were a blur. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of her infidelity. The pain was unbearable. Laura tried to make amends, but it was too late. The damage was done. One evening, as I sat in a bar nursing a drink, a man approached me. He was tall, with a menacing presence. He introduced himself as Mark, one of David's friends. He knew about the affair and seemed to revel in my misery. "You're not the first, you know," he said, a cruel smile on his lips. "David's been with lots of married women. It's his thing." Anger surged through me. This wasn't just about Laura anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity. I decided to confront David. I needed to look him in the eyes and see the man who had torn my life apart. Finding him wasn't hard. A few inquiries led me to a dingy bar on the outskirts of town. I walked in, heart pounding, and spotted him immediately. He was sitting at the bar, laughing with friends, completely oblivious to the havoc he'd wreaked. I approached him, my hands clenched into fists. "David," I said, my voice cold and hard. He turned, surprise flickering in his eyes. Before he could react, I swung, my fist connecting with his jaw. He stumbled back, knocking over his drink. His friends jumped up, ready to defend him, but I didn't care. I was consumed by a blind rage. The brawl that ensued was chaotic. Punches were thrown, tables were overturned, and glasses shattered. I don't remember much, just flashes of pain and anger. By the time it was over, I was bruised and bleeding, but I felt a grim satisfaction. David lay on the floor, groaning in pain. I was escorted out by the bar's bouncer and warned never to return. As I walked back to my car, I felt a strange sense of relief. I had confronted the man who had destroyed my life, and in some twisted way it made me feel better. But the reality of my situation quickly set in. My marriage was over. There was no going back to the way things were. Laura and I tried counseling, but the trust was gone. Every time I looked at her, I saw the betrayal in her eyes. Every time she touched me, I felt a pang of disgust. We decided to separate, and the divorce process was agonizing. Dividing our assets, figuring out living arrangements, it was a nightmare. Laura moved out, and I was left alone in the house that once held so many happy memories. Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. The nights were the hardest. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, haunted by thoughts of what had happened. I tried to move on, to rebuild my life, but it wasn't easy. I avoided social gatherings, finding solace in solitude. Friends reached out, but I pushed them away, unable to face their pity. One day, as I was sorting through old photos, I found a picture of Laura and me on our wedding day. We looked so happy, so full of hope for the future. I felt a lump in my throat and tears welled up in my eyes. How had it all gone so wrong? I decided to sell the house. There were too many memories, too much pain associated with it. I needed a fresh start, a chance to rebuild my life from the ground up. The process was slow and painful, but eventually I found a buyer and moved into a small apartment across town. Life after the divorce was a struggle. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the loneliness. I took up new hobbies, tried to meet new people, but there was always a part of me that remained closed off, guarded. The fear of being hurt again loomed over me like a dark cloud. Months turned into years, and slowly, I began to heal. I realized that I couldn't let Laura's betrayal define me. I needed to find my own happiness, independent of anyone else. I started attending therapy, which helped me process my emotions and gain a new perspective on life. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I felt a sense of peace. I had come a long way from that fateful night when I discovered the affair. I was still hurt, still scarred, but I was also stronger, more resilient. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I decided to take things one day at a time, to focus on the present rather than dwelling on the past. It wasn't easy, but with each passing day, I found new reasons to smile, new reasons to keep going. The divorce was a painful chapter in my life, but it also taught me valuable lessons. I learned about my own strength, about the importance of self-worth, and about the resilience of the human spirit. As I looked towards the future, I knew that I would face challenges, but I also knew that I had the strength to overcome them. In the end, life is a journey, full of ups and downs, twists and turns. I didn't know where my path would lead, but I was ready to embrace whatever came my way. And that, for me, was enough. Moving into my new apartment was bittersweet. It was a fresh start, but the emptiness was palpable. The walls seemed to close in on me, reminding me of everything I had lost. I tried to make the place feel like home, but it lacked the warmth and familiarity of the house Laura and I had shared. My routine became monotonous: work, home, sleep, repeat. Weekends were the hardest. I would often find myself sitting alone, the silence overwhelming. Friends and family encouraged me to get out more, to meet new people, but I wasn't ready. The wounds were still too fresh. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to go for a walk in the park. It was a beautiful day, the sun shining brightly, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves. As I strolled along the path, I saw families playing, couples holding hands, and children laughing. It was a stark contrast to the emptiness I felt inside. I found a bench and sat down, watching the world go by. As I sat there, lost in thought, an old man approached me. He had a kind face, with eyes that seemed to hold a lifetime of wisdom. He asked if he could sit, and I nodded. We struck up a conversation, and I found myself opening up to him in a way I hadn't with anyone else. I told him about the betrayal, the pain, the loneliness. He listened patiently, nodding occasionally, his expression compassionate. When I finished, he offered me some advice. Life is full of pain, my friend, but it's also full of beauty. Don't let one bad chapter define your whole story. You have the power to write your own ending. His words resonated with me. I realized that I had been stuck in a cycle of self-pity and despair. It was time to take control of my life, to find happiness again, even if it seemed impossible. I decided to take small steps. I joined a local gym, started volunteering at a community center, and reconnected with old friends. Slowly, my world began to expand. I met new people, formed new relationships, and found new passions. One day, while volunteering at the community center, I met a woman named Sarah. She was kind, funny, and had a warmth about her that drew me in. We started spending time together, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of joy. Sarah had her own story of heartbreak, and we bonded over our shared experiences. We supported each other, helping to heal the wounds of the past. It wasn't a fairy tale romance, but it was real and honest, and that was enough for me. As the months went by, my life continued to improve. I found a new sense of purpose, a new sense of self. The pain of the past still lingered, but it no longer defined me. I had learned to let go, to forgive, and to move forward. Life began to take on a rhythm again. Sarah and I continued to see each other, and our relationship deepened. We spent weekends exploring new places, trying out new activities, and simply enjoying each other's company. I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: happiness. One evening, as we sat on my balcony, Sarah turned to me with a serious expression. "I know we've both been through a lot," she said softly, "but I need to know if you're ready to fully move on. If we're going to make this work, we need to be honest with each other." Her words hit me hard. I realized that while I had made significant strides in rebuilding my life, there was still a part of me that was holding back. I was afraid of getting hurt again, of opening up completely. But Sarah deserved more than that. She deserved my whole heart, not just the pieces I was willing to give. "I am ready," I replied, taking her hand. "I want to build something real with you. No more holding back." She smiled, a look of relief washing over her face. From that moment on, our relationship became stronger, more intimate. We supported each other through the ups and downs, finding comfort in our shared vulnerability. As the months turned into a year, I decided it was time to introduce Sarah to my family. It was a big step, one that filled me with both excitement and anxiety. My family had been my rock through the divorce, and their approval meant a lot to me. The dinner went better than I could have hoped. My parents and siblings welcomed Sarah with open arms, and she fit in seamlessly. Watching her interact with my family, I realized just how much I had come to care for her. She wasn't just a part of my healing process, she was a part of my future. But life has a way of testing you when you least expect it. Just as things were starting to feel normal again, I received a call that turned my world upside down. It was from Laura. She sounded frantic, her voice shaking. "I need to see you," she said. "It's important." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to tell her to leave me alone, to stay in the past where she belonged. But another part of me, the part that had once loved her deeply, felt compelled to hear her out. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop. When I arrived, Laura was already there, looking anxious and tired. She greeted me with a weak smile, and we sat down. "I know I'm the last person you want to see," she began, her voice trembling. "But I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I know I hurt you deeply. I need to tell you that I'm sorry." I listened silently, emotions swirling inside me. It had taken her a long time to come to this realization, and while part of me appreciated the apology, another part was wary of her motives. "What do you want, Laura?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She took a deep breath. "I want to make amends, to find closure. I've been going to therapy, and it's helped me see things more clearly. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know that I regret everything." Her words were sincere, and I could see the pain in her eyes. It was clear she was struggling with her own demons, but I had moved on, and I wasn't sure if I could open that door again, even for closure. "I appreciate your apology," I said slowly, "but I've built a new life for myself. I've found someone who makes me happy. I can't go back to the past, Laura." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I just needed to say it, for my own peace of mind." We sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of our shared history hanging heavy in the air. Eventually, we said our goodbyes and went our separate ways. As I walked back to my car, I felt a strange sense of relief. The chapter with Laura was finally closed. When I told Sarah about the meeting, she was supportive and understanding. "I'm glad you got the closure you needed," she said, holding my hand. "Now we can truly move forward." Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. And move forward we did. Our relationship continued to grow, and I found myself falling more in love with her each day. We talked about our future, our dreams, and our plans. It was exciting and terrifying all at once. One evening, as we sat in a cozy restaurant celebrating our anniversary, I felt a surge of emotion. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box. Sarah's eyes widened as I opened it to reveal a ring. "Sarah," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "You've brought so much joy and light into my life. I can't imagine my future without you. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded, a radiant smile spreading across her face. "Yes, I will." The restaurant erupted in applause as I slipped the ring onto her finger. It was a moment of pure happiness, a beacon of light after years of darkness. Planning the wedding was a whirlwind of activity, but it brought us even closer together. We chose a beautiful venue by the lake, surrounded by nature and our closest friends and family. As the day approached, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. The wedding day was perfect. The sun shone brightly, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. As I stood at the altar watching Sarah walk down the aisle, I felt a sense of completeness I had never known before. She was my partner, my confidant, my love. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. We exchanged vows, promising to support and cherish each other for the rest of our lives. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, I felt an overwhelming sense of joy and gratitude. The reception was a blur of laughter, dancing, and celebration. As the night drew to a close, Sarah and I slipped away to a quiet corner, savoring the moment. "We did it," she whispered, her eyes shining with happiness. "Yes, we did," I replied, holding her close. "And this is just the beginning." Life as newlyweds was wonderful. We faced challenges, of course, but we tackled them together, always communicating and supporting each other. I finally felt like I had found my place in the world, with Sarah by my side. But life is never without its surprises. A few months after the wedding, Sarah and I found out we were expecting a baby. The news was both thrilling and daunting. We spent hours talking about our hopes and fears, preparing for the arrival of our little one. The months flew by, and before we knew it, we were holding our newborn daughter in our arms. She was perfect, a tiny bundle of joy that filled our hearts with love. We named her Emily, and she quickly became the center of our world. Parenthood brought its own set of challenges, but it also brought immense joy. Sarah and I navigated the sleepless nights and endless diaper changes together, growing even closer in the process. Watching Emily grow and learn was a daily reminder of the beauty of life. As I sat in Emily's nursery one night, watching her sleep, I reflected on my journey. From the depths of betrayal and heartbreak, I had found my way to a place of love and happiness. It hadn't been easy, but every step had been worth it. Life continued to move forward, with all its ups and downs. Sarah and I faced each new challenge together, always finding strength in our love for each other and for Emily. Our little family was my greatest joy, my greatest achievement. But as the years went by, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more I needed to do. The pain of the past had shaped me, but it didn't define me. I wanted to help others who were going through similar experiences, to show them that there was hope, even in the darkest of times.